Today we're going to be going over 3 tricks that really helped me to improve my volley, and I'm going to give you a drill for each trick that you can use in order to practice. So tip number 1, and it's probably going to be pretty obvious, but it's shoulder rotation. I've noticed that when I'm watching back my gameplay, I would always notice that a lot of the time when the ball is coming at me fast from the backcourt and I'm standing at the net, I just open up like this with my forehand volley, and I'm not really moving my actual shoulders or my body towards the ball. Where in reality, you really want to be set up here and then turn with your whole entire body and then follow through like that. But what I was doing in gameplay is just kind of like opening up and being super lazy, and then I would cut down, opening up my paddle face, and it would just be a poor shot. So drill number 1 in order to improve on the rotation of your shoulders is a really easy one, and it's essentially just you're in your starting position and you're going to rotate, keeping your non-dominant hand on the core of the racket, and you can actually practice by swinging with the non-dominant hand on the racket. It's going to feel very weird, and it's kind of an over-exaggeration of this first movement. And then you'll notice, or at least I noticed, that when I was doing this, I would start to get my legs more involved because I had more time to pop out of that shot and get a lot of my power out of my legs when I was doing this. If you want to really over-exaggerate the drill for tip number 1, what you actually can do is you can take your wrist strap off of your dominant hand and you can put it on your non-dominant hand. And so this is basically going to force you can't swing without bringing your hand with you. So even though you don't need to be touching the racket technically, you actually are going to be carrying your hand, because if your non-dominant hand tries to stay behind, then your dominant hand is going to pull it with it. Tip number 2 is built off of tip number 1, but it's essentially just your follow through. So once you get into the right position, you have the shoulder rotation, I would notice that a lot of the time I was following through down towards the ground. I would see the professionals play and you see all the movements. It looks like they're like swinging like this and swinging their paddle down to the ground. And in some sense they are, but they've also worked through the technical skills of they're pushing out and they're pushing down. They just move so quickly that a lot of the time it looks like they're just cutting down with it. And so I think I got trapped into the movement of just over exaggerating the slice. And what that did to my swing was I would just start swinging downwards and I would create a lot of spin, but I would completely lose all of the power. And so one drill that you can do in order to improve this is to completely take out the slice out of the swing and just hit a completely flat shot on your volley and just push the ball towards the back of the court, not worried about technically the slice that you're supposed to see with a volley shot. Just really working on the push movement outwards and none of that downward movement. And then once you get comfortable with that, I was able to incorporate the slice, and it was a lot more natural for me to put the slice in once I got the feeling for the actual pushing movement. Tip number 3 is going to tie your whole entire volley shot together. It's going to tie all of these different tricks into kind of one fluid motion, and it's basically just the follow through and where you're placing the ball. So once you've started to work through kind of, I guess, the outward motion in your follow through, what I tried to do was just figure out where I wanted to land the ball. So in trick number 2, I wasn't as much worried about kind of where the ball was going. I honestly wasn't really worried if it was going out or whether it was landing short. As long as I was contacting the ball and I was pushing through and pushing out rather than down, I was happy with it. And now trick number 3 is basically you start to worry about where you're actually placing the shot. So for your opponents, it's going to be much more difficult if you're landing your volleys at the white line or behind the white line, because then they're going to have to worry about whether or not to contact the ball before or after it hits the wall. And then it all kind of ties out, because then you can start playing the slices and then you can start using the back ball to your advantage for that ball to drop down. So the drill for tip number 3 is have someone just kind of toss you some easy volleys again and just focus on the landing zone. Just focus on hitting it behind the white line and add some more power here and there so that you can start to feel what it really feels like when you hit your ball with the right technique and you hit it to the back of the court to make some gnarly volley shots for your opponents to deal with. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching the video. If you feel like you've learned something from these, let me know in the comments below. If you want to hear about other tips and tricks, if you like the gameplay stuff, just let me know kind of your feedback. I'd love to get any of it. But aside from that, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.